church family. Hey, it's good to have you guys that are tuning in, and we're able to see some of your comments this morning and or this afternoon, and so thankful that you have chose to tune in and be with us today. It's on my heart all week, or at least towards the latter part of the week, that we hear from Mama Christy today. I believe the Lord's put a few things on our heart to share with you. I think it's going to be amazing. And so I just want to thank these guys for coming out and playing today and being a part of this service. Pastor Phil and Jeanette are here in the audience. And we're thankful that they're able to be here. Trust you guys are doing well. Everybody's staying healthy. We miss everyone so much. And just being able to gather together, it's really important. And again, it's so important that we do our best to stay connected, even though we're being, to some degree, forced to stay separated. And we want those times of separation to just drive us further into devotion and into that lifestyle of devotion and being seated in rest and being close to the Lord, just spending that time with Him. I know He's certainly doing a work in my heart, and I know He is others. I've heard the reports of that, so we're thankful. I want to thank you for your continued financial support. Again, if you want to mail your tithe, you can send that to 104 Elm Street in Harrisburg, 24134, or you can stop by the office or get a hold of Pastor Phil or Rick or myself, and we'll be able to meet you down here and take that if we need to. But thank you so much for doing that. It's just amazing how God's really helped. And we know through the word of our apostle, our spiritual father, there's going to be a great measure or a greater measure of financial increase and authority in the Spirit after this time of quarantine, for lack of a better word. So again, it's good to have you. If you would do me a favor, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, just in your hearts, welcome Mama Christy as she comes to share with us this morning. Thank you guys. You guys can come down. It was awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah. Do you want to use a mic stand? Or do you want to hold it? Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, afternoon. We don't know what day it is. We don't know what time it is. Those of us who are staying home and not essential, or us non-essentials, don't know what day it is and what time it is. But good afternoon. I heard a story yesterday. I read it, and I wanted to share it with you. It's so on my heart that this is where we are. And it was a gentleman who was watching a YouTube video of a man who was describing how to fix something. And he was so wrapped up in the video that when the man dropped a screw, he reached down to his floor to get the screw, and then realized I'm not there with him. And over the past couple weeks, I've had some VHS tapes that needed to be converted to digital, and so I've been doing that in my spare time. And what I've found is when I spend a couple hours watching old film of my boys when they were little or my childhood, I'll have this overwhelming feeling like I've just spent Christmas morning with my family in the 80s. And as crazy as that sounds, I believe that's our opportunity here to be kind of spiritually translated, to be with our spiritual family during this time. And you certainly don't have to watch at the same time or be here when we are filming it or when we're going out live, but our spirits can be connected when you do that. And so I encourage you to carve out this period of time when we're live and really connect in that family. I got a message this morning from a daughter who had a dream last night, and she has been literally not leaving her house at all, except for, maybe once a week. And so she's got a lot of cabin fever. And so she had this dream that she came and visited Papa D and me, and she said, I visited with you all, and it was such a great visit, and I can't wait to do it again. And I just texted her back. It's spiritual translation, and I can't wait to be with you again, not just physically, but spiritually. And so I encourage you to connect in that way, to connect when we're live, to rewatch the videos of the times that we've shared little bits here and there with you. If you have an old DVD of a service, watch that and just connect. But I do have a couple things on my heart, and I want to go back first to what I shared a couple weeks ago when we were here with Pastor Phil and Jeanette and Papa and me, and it was Colossians 2. I've so been stuck there, in a good way stuck there, just reviewing how I intercede for you all, and how when Paul says struggle in this scripture, it's a deep longing, a deep intercession for the people. And Colossians 2:2 says, your hearts will be wrapped in the comfort of heaven. Wrapped, it's that wrapped up. It's what that gentleman was in that YouTube video. He was so wrapped up in the video that when the person in the video dropped a screw, he wanted to be a part of that. And so I pray that your hearts will be wrapped in the comfort of heaven, and you're woven together into love's fabric. And so recently, within the last few months, I shared with you that I felt like our family was coming together, and we had these puzzle pieces. And as they fit together, we have this beautiful puzzle. And what the Lord kind of corrected me this morning as I was meditating on that was this. What we all have the opportunity to do, if you've ever worked a puzzle with a group of people, it never works if everybody just tries to work the puzzle. What you do is, Lauren takes the red section, or she takes the roses. I'm going to take the roses in this puzzle, and I'm going to find all the red pieces, and I'm going to put that together. And then Jeanette, she takes the yellow tulips. And then Pastor Phil, he gets the white lilies. And then Pastor David says, I'm going to get the sky, and I say, I'll get all the grass. And you work your section. And then when you come together, they all fit together. And so what the Lord's doing in us right now is you may feel isolated, but understand that all of your pieces that you're putting together right now, how much greater is that going to be when they all come together? When you come together with family. And just like I said, even if it's a spiritual translation, when you come together and you're feeling this all along, I thought I was just working my own puzzle. I thought it was just a puzzle of lilies. But oh my gosh, it's a puzzle of a garden. It's an entire garden. And I just had the lilies. And I thought that this was a full puzzle by itself, and it could be. But how much greater it looks when we realize it's just a section of pieces that fit into the much bigger section. We will be woven together into love's fabric. I think of a quilt when I think of that. How can you think of love's fabric and not think of a quilt? They're like warm, and they're especially ones that have been used and used and used. Like there's no itchy fabric, and it's just Papa D has one that his grandma, I believe, gave him, but it's in the closet. We kind of guard it because it's older, and we don't want it to just fall apart. And it's just so soft. It has like corduroy pieces and cotton pieces, and that's love's fabric. We're woven together in love's fabric. And what that does during this time when we may feel isolated and separated, but we're spending time alone with Yahweh, He is quilting us together. He's quilting something in us. He's quilting. What does that do? That love's fabric? A quilt makes you feel safe. You're that little kid who, if every part of your body's under that quilt, nothing can hurt you. It doesn't matter who comes in, the boogeyman or that little thing under your bed or whatever. If all of your body parts are under that quilt, nothing can touch you. And that's what we are when we're in a secret place and our love's fabric is being woven together. But then when we come together as a family again, we will be able to be woven together in love's fabric. And then who gets the benefit of that quilt? Our whole community, our whole region, our whole state, our whole nation, and globally. They'll feel the safety and protection and the love of our quilt, of our family quilt, our family blanket that brings that safety and protection, that is Yahweh. And so that first comes individually, being wrapped in the comfort of heaven, and then we let Yahweh be our blanket, and then we let his presence be enough. We have to understand that it's not his presence plus he fixes the situation. It's not his presence and it starts to feel like summer again. It's not his presence and, it's his presence is enough. His presence is enough. And when we begin to feel that, then when we come together, his love casts out that fear individually and so much more corporately, so much more as a family. We experience that comfort whether we're busy or whether we're bored. I would encourage you, if you're busy right now, and there are people absolutely whose lives have not been interrupted, it hasn't been stopped, but they've been disrupted in that they're working more than ever, they're exposed to things they never were exposed to before, they're maybe more anxious than they've ever been before, so they're at risk of just being busy, just trying to, if I could just hold my breath until I get through this. But that comfort comes when you're busy. And I would encourage you, if you're busy, to carve out that time. It's even more important now than it ever has been before. If you're busy, finding time to be alone with Yahweh may be more important than anything else in your day. It may be the first thing that you need to do. It may be the last thing you need to do. It may be all the way through the day you need to do it. But you need to find that time alone with him. We live a lifestyle of devotion. We don't have to carve out time to be devoted to him, but we carve out time for intimacy with him. And I would encourage you, if you feel busy right now, carve it out more than ever. If you're staying home, but you're overwhelmed with the responsibilities, you still have to work, you still have to take care of your household, carve out that time. It's as important as any other time that you would carve out. And then to those of us who might even be classified as bored, we have way too much time on our hands. I would encourage you, don't try to fill that time. Don't try to fill that time. It's a lie of the enemy that you have to be busy, that you have to be doing something. And that doesn't mean that you can't do a project that's been sitting around your house for 6 months and be in devotion to him. Because I shared with our family here a couple months ago, so I shared with you all, if I'm in my closet in my prayer time and I'm looking at my shoes and I'm rearranging them and rearranging them and rearranging them in my mind, the Lord just said to me, get up and rearrange them. Number one, I'll be with you while you're rearranging them, but I'll be with you so much greater when you're done rearranging them, because you're going to sit there and rearrange them in your mind anyway. And so we can absolutely be woven together with him in those projects that we want to get done, but don't get so caught up in always having something to do and always being busy. Be okay with being alone with him. So there's a couple things that came to my mind this week in different areas, which I won't go into, but the time fillers that come to your mind. So bear with me. This is a term I learned this week. I was told this: avoid incidental language. And so in this case, what they're talking about is don't fill in your sentences with a bunch of words that don't mean much to you, and they mean even less to the person you're talking to. They're misunderstood, they're not understood at all, they're confusing, they bring chaos. And so what the Lord showed me this morning is the only way to avoid incidental language, or one of the greatest ways to avoid incidental language in our own life, is to avoid the input that we allow, is to restrict the input we allow in our lives. And this is the example he gave me. It's such a opportune time to go through and listen to every sermon you can, every worship set you can, every leader talk about it, every newscast, every presidential news conference, every time the governor speaks, and you can absolutely stay connected with those things if that's what you feel like you need to do. But listen to me. When you open up that stream, it's like trying to drink out of a fire hose, if you've ever heard that expression. In the end, you're still going to be thirsty, and it's going to look like you're not thirsty because you're going to be drenching wet, but none of it got in you. And so what we do is we open up these terminals into our ears, into our eyes, and then we have to start filtering what's come in. So I've listened to, let's just say, for example, I've listened to 100 preachers today, and I've gotten all this information, but now I have to filter, not what's true and what's not. By God's grace, it's all truth. It's all based on foundational truths. But I'm having to filter what applies to me, what's helpful to me, what doesn't stress me out, what's not anxiety-ridden. There are people absolutely, right now, that's their whole focus. So everything they talk about is going to be about a virus, even if it's a church service. And so I have to start filtering that out because that kind of makes me anxious to be around people or whatever your issue is. And so if we just begin to restrict the flow in, we won't have to as much restrict the flow out. Because what you'll find is when death comes in, when the language of death and sickness and disease is constantly coming in, it's what's going to come out. You won't be able to stop it unless you get that filter in there. And so if we just begin to filter what comes in, and so what's my filter? For me, Yahweh, number one. Yahweh is my number one input in my life. I go to him first, and I go to him after any time I've gotten input. And so Yahweh's input is always right. It's always true. It's always encouraging. It's always uplifting. And then it's apostolic fathers. What is the people you consider to be an apostolic father? It doesn't have to be that they designate themselves as an apostolic father, but who do you consider to be an apostolic father in your life? Allow them to speak into your life. Allow them to encourage you in the way that they do. Allow that. Open that flow. But when you allow anyone who is considered an apostolic father, there come the filters again. I've got to start, because what if they start to identify me as something I'm not because they don't know who I am? And then for me, my third input that's allowed is family. And absolutely, there still has to be filters there because there's things that they say that don't apply to me or that I'm not concerned with. But it's family, and so it's a safe place. And it's a place that I can rely on getting information that's not going to hurt if it comes back out. It's not what goes in a man that defiles him, it's what comes out. But we can help what goes out by what comes in here, not by what goes in our mouth, not by what we eat, but by what goes in our ears. And the more inputs that we allow, the more we'll have to strain or filter when we begin to speak. You find this, people who watch news all day, you get around them, what do they talk about? News. And then they aren't filtering, a lot of times, they're not filtering what they've heard through truth, they're just repeating what they've heard. And a lot of times it's not true. So watch your inputs and it'll help you with your output. It may appear that you've gotten a lot when you look at someone who's been drinking out of a fire hose, for example. It looks like they've gotten a lot, but in the end, all they've gotten is a little bit. But if you go to a water fountain and you let it stream for an hour, just a water fountain, you may not be drinking the whole time, but what you do drink is nourishing to your body. It will be retained by your body. It will help your body. And it's the same way when you find that one stream, when you find that apostolic father that absolutely answers every question, and Yahweh fills in the gaps that he can't answer. We experience this every time we sit down to watch a live stream with our Papa Damon Thompson, but we did this morning. My husband and I looked at each other and said, that's what we just talked about. He's answering our questions. He's talking to something we just talked about that he doesn't even know we talked about. And that's the water fountain effect. We were able to draw that in and use it because we didn't have 15 voices trying to speak something different into our life. It's the way we ensure being rooted and seated in beloved identity. Listening to Yahweh, listening to apostolic fathers, and being surrounded by family that's woven together in love's fabric. So I want to go back and I want to read Colossians 2. What I just quoted at the beginning was Colossians 2:2, but what I want to read is Colossians 2:2 through 10. So I want to start at 2. I am contending for you that your hearts will be wrapped in the comfort of heaven and woven together into love's fabric. The certainty of your faith will give you access to all the riches of God as you experience the revelation of God's great mystery, Christ unveiled to you. If you look at that word, approach is the word I'm looking for. So, the certainty of your faith will give you access. Actually, what it's saying there is it'll give you ability to approach all the riches of God. It doesn't say it'll give you the riches of God. It will give you access. It will give you the approach to the riches of God. I love that because we can do so much more, but it just gives us access. The certainty, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that rabbit trail, but it just caught my attention. For our spiritual wealth is in him like hidden treasure waiting to be discovered, heaven's wisdom and endless riches of revelation knowledge. I want you to know this so that no one will come and lead you into error. And I want to stop for just a second and tell you that that word error there implies that what they're trying to lead you into is believing that God's not as good as he is, that God doesn't care as much as he does. This isn't error like you would think of people not preaching against sin in the way they should, or people not giving a nod to people who are doing things they shouldn't be doing. This is people trying to convince you that God's not good, that God doesn't care about you the way that he does. He delights in you. He loves you. He wants to spend time with you. That's the error that it's talking about here. Through their persuasive arguments and clever words. Even though I'm separated from you geographically, we're all separated right now geographically, my spirit is present there with you, and I'm overjoyed to see how disciplined and deeply committed you are, because you have such a solid faith in Christ, the Anointed One. In the same way you received Jesus, our Lord and Messiah, by faith, continue your journey of faith, progressing further into your own union with him. That's what we need to be doing right now, progressing in our own union with him. It's the best time for it. We're separated from so many people, so we can't focus as much on relationships outside physically. We can certainly stay connected through phones and texts and that kind of thing, but this is the great time to pursue your union with him. Make it greater. Make it a greater priority than anything else right now, your union with him. All right, I'm back to where I was. Your spiritual roots go deeply into his life as you are continually infused with strength, encouraged in every way, for you are established in faith. You have absorbed and enriched by your devotion to him. Beware that no one distracts you from or intimidates you in their attempt to lead you away from Christ's fullness by pretending to be full of wisdom when they're filled with endless arguments of human logic. And I just want to insert here, the arguments of human logic can certainly be spiritual. They can be about spiritual things. It can be people who are teaching things that cause arguments to rise up in your own self, but it can just be as simple as a news broadcast. It's human logic. It's trying to figure something out, trying to figure out the best way for you not to get sick or the best way for you not to transmit a virus. I'm not saying that that's not wisdom to know that, but what good at the end of the day has that done you eternally? For they operate with humanistic and clouded judgments based on the mindset of this world system and not the anointed truths of the Anointed One. For he is the complete fullness of deity living in human form, and our own completeness is now found in him. We are completely filled with God as Christ's fullness overflows within us. When it says that he is the complete fullness of deity living in human form, it doesn't mean when he was in human form. This is Paul speaking after Christ's resurrection. He wasn't in human form at that time. How is he in human form? In us. He's in human form in us. So when it says he is the complete fullness of the deity in living in human form, we are the complete fullness of deity when he lives in us, when he lives in our human form. And our own completeness is now found in him. We are completely filled with God as Christ's fullness overflows within us. He is the head of every kingdom and authority in the universe. He's the head of it. He's over it. He's in charge of it. Whatever you want to say, he's left us in charge of the planet because he lives in us. And we need to allow that. And that's the way that we'll continue to know that we're seated and we're rooted in our beloved identity. Because it needs to be important who he says you are. When you're rooted in beloved identity, you know who he says you are. So it doesn't matter if you go on and you hear news, if you see a Facebook post, if you see an Instagram post that makes you believe something about yourself, if your gifts are used and you begin to really like how it feels when your gifts are used, but you're rooted in beloved identity, it's not going to confuse those things. And that's what I want to address last. Those things that come at you, it's not as much that you need to worry about filtering them, it's that you need to worry about how they cause you to not be single-minded. Because a double-minded man, woman, person is unstable in all their ways. And so when you begin to take in streams of multiple different things, it causes double-mindedness. It causes multiple things to begin to rise up in you, and that causes chaos in your own self. It causes this, and that will cause anxiety, chaos and anxiety in your life if you just keep that stream to Yahweh and apostolic fathers and family. There's so much less to be chaotic in your life. It calms the storm. His presence in the boat, what our Papa's been telling us, his presence in the boat didn't calm the storm. He had to be woken up. The disciples weren't convinced that just his presence was enough. They had to wake him up. You may feel like Jesus is sleeping, but he's not. You don't need to wake him up. His presence is enough. You have apostolic fathers' voices, and you have family. A comforting quilt, a fabric of love wrapped around you. Whether you can feel it or not, I pray today that you can feel it in your homes, as you leave your homes, as you go to the store, as you go, if you have to go to work. I pray that you can feel the fabric of love of this family and of Yahweh in your life. I just want to pray really quick, and then if there's anybody else here that has something on their heart, then we will let them share. But I'm so thankful that you guys have joined us. I do want to remind you during this time, if you want to give, that option is available to you. Obviously, you're local, so you can drive here to the church offices and give your money that way. You can mail it in to 104 Elm Street the way you have been doing. We appreciate all of you guys who have been doing that. We're praying increase in your finances every day. I'm praying over you inventive ways to bring in cash flow into your homes. Inventions to be creatively thought of during this time. So I just want to pray over you guys now. Jesus, I pray for this family. I pray for our kingdom family who's distant, and I pray for our kingdom family who's here locally, Lord. I pray that you would watch over them, give them guidance, give them protection, limit their flows, God. I pray you bring restriction to their flow, God, that they would begin to drink from water fountains, Lord, that nourish deeply, that bring hydration deeply into their lives, God. You meet us where we are. You meet us at the wells. You meet us at work. You meet us at home, God, and I'm thankful that you do that, God, and I pray you would continue to meet this family. God, that you would continue to bring the pieces together so that when we come together as one, there'll be a gigantic puzzle to be assembled. In Jesus' name, amen. I believe Pastor Phil has something.
Hey everybody, just something that's been on my heart since Apostle Damon shared last Sunday morning this verse. He shared from Psalm 46:10 from the Passion Translation. Surrender your anxiety. Of course, Dr. Simmons says that the Greek version of that just means relax. And be silent and stop striving, and you will see that I am God. And it's something to me, being in education for years, that to me when I pondered that verse, it's like it's the lesson, and it's the homework, and it's the test all at the same time. And so I can't help but think that we're always in school. You know, there's always lessons to be learned, and a lot of them about ourselves. So whether it's pre-virus, mid-virus, or after-virus, we're always in school. Yeah. God's always trying to show us and teach us, and it's all for good. Jeanette and I were in a conversation yesterday with someone, and really, they had a really healthy attitude. And in all, I'm going to say it like this, all their daily adventures, it was almost like that was always on their mind. It was positive. What is God trying to teach me? What is he trying to show me? And with that, it was so positive. Like, tomorrow's a new day, and what's it going to be? And it's all going to be good. What's he trying to say? So, again, we love y'all and miss you, and we're thankful for Christy sharing today. And again, till we meet in person, see each other again.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in today. We love you, we miss you, and like Pastor Phil said, until we meet again.